Raj, Divine Raj, blessed be to your day. In order to win today, we gotta understand, we know, now we are coming into the understandings of understanding the night before or the darker aspects in the unseen to help us come into our new self, that new authentic aspect of ourselves. Throughout the week, we get into that mirror complex, the broken images that we would steady recess and try to feed from to build our space, the mirages of mirages of false pride, or maintaining those behaviors, or this mirage or this idea. We create this ideology or this philosophy in our minds to why we're doing what we're doing based on, I am doing this. I am sacrificing so much time. I'm sacrificing this. I'm sacrificing this. When not in reality, it made me really think about the difference between an understanding that once you, the only time that you, use an example, the only time that you say you care or you don't care is you really do care. Somewhere inside of you, you got some type of caring thought process to it. Or else you wouldn't have to say you don't care and try to, sometimes, because a lot of times for us, we put ourselves in a space where we're saying things and we're trying to convince ourselves as much as we're trying to sustain the space. So it made me think about the deprivation tank. The deprivation tank is similar to like whenever you go deep sea diving, or you go so deep sea diving or deep down in your emotions, and then when you're coming back, they put you in this tank so your body releases off the excess gas, to release off the excess aspects. That's what I think about when we're thinking about our trauma-induced reactions. Most of our reactions, most of the time, how we're reacting, how we're saying things to certain spaces, what we're speaking on, a lot of it's trauma-induced. A lot of it's based on us reacting. A lot of it's based on us staying within a certain space. Not accepting the challenge or accepting the aspects of our challenge, of our standards being challenged. Your behavior, your boundaries and what's reciprocated to you are naturally going to flow based on your standard. So a good way, instead of us reacting based on getting upset and getting stagnant, because remember, it's not good or bad, it's positive and negative, and you start getting stagnant, when something comes into your space and challenges your standards, it's only coming from one of two ways. Either your standards were too low at that point in time, maybe it's time to assess your self-love routine, assess your friendships, assess your environment, assess what you're doing with your time, how you're creating your identity. 9 times out of 10, it's always that standard. The thing that keeps us stuck on a lot of times when we're trying to be real, I'm trying to be real, this is me, you got to accept me for me. Most people that think that they're real or they're realist with their conversation, they actually have a pragmatic mindset. There's 5 different communication styles. The realist, the idealist, the one that can synthesize, the one that is the pragmatic, and I just forgot the 5th one that fast. But we're going to get into the pragmatic aspect. Every time that you say that you are real, I'm trying to be real, ain't nobody, it's a trauma response. A lot of times when we're thinking that we're real, I'm trying to remain real. No. There were so many times in my life where I thought I was like, I'm being real, and I'm being 100, and I'm being upfront. But it was mainly, every time that I was doing it, it was based on the standard that I set for myself. I had a certain standard set for myself. I had a certain way that I was going to be, certain way that I was comfortable with. I was complacent. And I really had to start seeing, this is one of those, this is when you're doing this internal work. I was sitting there in that space and I was like, a lot of times, I'm trying to say that I'm trying to be real. And then I got people around me. This is the crazy part. When I really started doing daily reflections, daily. I'm talking about when I'm talking about daily reflections in my earlier on words, I mean every day, 3 times a day, I was sitting down, I was trying to find moments to reflect for myself. And then I started noticing things. When I stopped using that pragmatic way of thinking, that pragmatic execution, that communication, in order to fill my space and stay acting in that behavior, I noticed that everybody around me, they were a reflection or a projection of being real. All based in maintaining the behavior. You see, when you're authentic, you're expanding, you're learning, you're growing. Your standard is always being reset. You're allowing the lessons to help you reset your standard. You're allowing the lessons to help you, you know what, I cannot sit here. It's like having a reality check when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I ain't got no edges. I need to do something about my edges. I need to do something about my weight. These are the simple things in the physical aspect. That's the same thing. Remember, as above, as below. As above, so below. So think about it. You're saying you need to lose some weight. Your hair ain't growing right. Stuff ain't as above, so below. But this is where we get confused. This is the external aspect of that space. This is the deprivation tank for your soul. Your soul is going to stay locked up until you release and understand why you're in that tank. So if I'm down here and I'm saying my weight, I don't like the way I'm looking with my weight or my energy levels or my all of these things, it's not going to be fixed down here. It's going to be fixed when the tank rises up to the top into my spiritual aspects, my internal aspects. Everything down here, if I'm in conflict, as above, I'm in conflict. So as below, we're in conflict. As within, I'm in conflict. As without, I'm in conflict. I'm just stuck within the illusion because it looks real. I talked about it on Friday. Go watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Go watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I forgot the season. But it's the season when Mac, the black guy in there, they got stuck in the framework. And he did not want to leave because his daughter with somebody he did not know. They never met him to the age. The emotions were real. The feelings were real. And he was sitting in that space and he was like, I can't leave my daughter. Even though she wasn't real. Everything down here is based on the frequency that you are on. We get confused when we start seeing things versus being aware. All of these things go into that deprivation tank with yourself. There's a difference. A lot of times we get confused with the things that we see versus the things that we're aware of. Your sight and your awareness are 2 different aspects. Just because you see it does not mean you're aware of what it is. Because when we're using our sight, the only way we can see something is if our eyes and our mind is on that same frequency. You're looking for yourself inside of that space. And then, but as you start becoming aware, I'm going to give you an example of being aware. I remember I had friends that were not listening to me, never listened. And I used to get mad when they didn't listen. My camera acting all crazy. But I remember having friends that would not listen to me about like relationship advice, their jobs and stuff of that nature. And then I remember on the other end of that, when I would tell them about my accomplishments, my job, the things I was doing that were being great, they would always give me this dry ass look, this dry ass feeling, never really appreciating what I was saying. But I had to understand I was only looking at what they were seeing and I wasn't aware. I was only seeing, I wasn't aware. I was trying to see myself in them. I celebrate, because this is how you do it. We never really think about it. I celebrate them every time they get a promotion. I celebrated their job. I celebrated their birthday. I celebrated this. I did this for them. I did this for them. You're seeing yourself in them. If you go into this state of awareness, this is based on you internalizing and learning yourself, the internal aspect. Remember, I can't understand other people's emotions and become discerning and differentiate between others and my own energy until I work with my energy. You can't go out there talking about, you got to get your own energy in order first before you step out there. You're doing it simultaneously, because I'm going to give you a key to how you're doing it simultaneously in this aspect. When I became with my sight and seeing what they were doing, I was looking for myself in the situation. I was looking for when they were upset, when they were down, when they were depressed, I was there for them. Why weren't they there like that for me? I had to understand that this one line that a lot of us will always say to ourselves, I want nobody to go through what I went through. There is no such, I said it yesterday. You've only been competing with your trauma. You've only been competing with your trauma, your unseen, your undealt with events. That's all you've ever been competing against. You haven't been competing against anybody. Nobody's made you feel like you were anything. Nobody challenged you. There were only the reflections of you competing, of you going against alongside of your trauma. So you go into that space, if you're not dealing with yours, and you need that lesson, because I had a consultation about this yesterday, you'll say something simple in your, we're going to get deeper into the karmic cycles on Friday. Think about it like this. You can look at somebody and be like, I can't believe they would do something like that. And you said it back when you were little. Why the hell would they do that? Why would they go through that? Why would they be like this, and that? You speak that out. You're only speaking to yourself. Unconsciously, because you're doing a passive approach. Now in your space, 2-3 years down the line, you got a friend, either it's you, a friend, a relative, whatever it may be in your space, they are now going through exactly what you said you didn't understand. Because now it's in front of you to understand it. You asked that question. You weren't direct about why you asked that question. A lot of times we come into these spaces with ourselves and we're not asking ourselves these true questions to get true answers. You'll get in that space and be like, I rock with them and I ride with them and that's my friend. Those are my people. But at a point in time, it's like you really got to ask yourself the question, why? They are only conducive to the level and frequency that you are at. Your standards will always be tested by those. Your standards will always be tested in an external aspect of you to make sure, to let you know that it's time for you to move on. And you just keep getting upset. But they got that's not what they're supposed to do. They have a purpose. They have a role. If you're avoiding, I can guarantee, if you're avoiding shit, I can guarantee there's people around you that are avoiding stuff. If you are neglecting an aspect of self-care for yourself, I can guarantee there's people around you that are neglecting aspects of themselves. Until you understand that you're depriving yourself of what you truly need with that self-care with yourself, that's going to be the primary. You're always going to keep keeping yourself in those niches. You're always going to be in there waiting on, why can't I get this reciprocated to me? Why can't I get what I give to others? You got to think about the standard of where you're at based on your energy. It's always based on energy. Everything else is just an illusion built on top of that. So the next time you have a conversation and you're wondering why you're not getting the answer that you want, it's time to really pay attention and see you're getting the answer that you need. If they're giving you an avoidant ass answer, they're showing you that they're showing you that they're operating through the state of avoidance. That means it's time for you to look at yourself, take that reflection and say, what am I avoiding? And this is the crazy part. Remember, everything's an illusion, so it's all in correspondence. What are you avoiding? If you go into a space and you feel like somebody's neglecting you in some sort of shape or way, instead of asking and trying to get upset, trying to keep maintaining the space, ask yourself the question, what am I neglecting in my life? What am I neglecting with my true self? it changes your entire perception. The way that you'll tap into that energy, because you're going to be changing that frequency and vibrating at the higher rate. See, a lot of us got stuck in the deprivation tank. A lot of us are down here stuck in this deprivation tank, wondering why we can't keep things in our life. Not understanding that your unseen, that we keep going into, is what creates what you can't keep within your life. You're wondering why, because you stuck within time and everything that you wanting doesn't radiate in time. True love knows no bounds. We've heard all of these cliche-ass lines and we got stuck with them because they made us feel good, but we didn't understand what the hell they meant. Time knows no bounds. Love knows no bounds. Love knows no limits, but you setting limits to your love. That means it's not really love. You setting limits to your peace. The boundaries and how it's reciprocated is naturally set based on your standard. Therefore, if things are not being reciprocated to you in a way that is going to help you get better, help you grow, if motherfuckers are habitually stepping over some lines with you, it's time to check your standards. It's time to take that assessment to yourself and check your standards. I remember I always wondered, like, why motherfuckers keep doing the same thing to me every day and they keep thinking they don't get away with it. They keep trying to play me. It was my standards. It was my standards with myself. I'm expecting motherfuckers to fall in alignment and all this shit, but in real life with myself, I wasn't falling in the line. It's time for that accountability. It's time for that responsibility. It's time to tap in and do that internal work. It's time to step into this darkness. Stop trying to stay in the projection. Stop trying to stay in the light. Stop trying to just move things around. Stop going in your living room, in your mind, and just moving the couch around. And saying, okay, new space, because it's not. Same space. It's there for the same reason. It's been there for the same purpose. Stop moving that same couch around saying that, ooh, I liven up my space. I bought a plant to liven up my space. It's time to really do an assessment. Why was that space created in the first place? What was the foundation of that space? Everything from understanding, we're shifting from really understanding was your first relationship that you ever saw, your mom and your pops, grandfather. This is when we go into the ancestral healing. We did live right now. You go into the ancestral healing. Was the first relationship that you ever saw based on survival or love? For a lot of us, we don't understand that it was based on, a lot of our relationships are based on love, based on survival. One good thing to understand the cultural aspect, when we use that, the cultural diaspora of understanding how our relationships that we first saw were based on survival and not love, was based on the work ethic aspect. Especially down here in the South, where like sharecropping and all that shit was. That's what a lot of the other relationships are based on. They're based on work ethic. They're based on maintaining based on maintaining the basic needs and necessities. So if you couldn't meet the basic needs or necessities, then of course naturally you were not reciprocating when you were really just in a state of deprivation because you had not yet learned to do it for yourself. Everything down here got a purpose. Everything down here is your lesson to learn yourself. You got one or two choices in this whole thing. Either you're going to really start sitting here, you're either going to keep building alongside of your trauma, or you're going to collide with your trauma. If you continue building right beside your traumas, the events that you haven't dealt with, you're always going to feel like you need to catch up. You're always going to feel this lack of doubt. You're always going to feel some shit that you can't simply explain. It's time to explain your why. Everything from the readings, consultations. Tonight, the God Hour show's back. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Facebook Live. Y'all stay tuned for that. Because I desire you to be the fucking best. I desire you to take this time for that self-assessment. That's all it's ever been, is taking that self-assessment, learning yourself. Everything outside of you is going to be that point to help you learn those aspects of yourself. I desire you to be the best. You can stay human or you can stay stay in this humanoid-like factor and keep battling back and forth. I'm gonna do this first. I'm gonna give you one last key. It doesn't matter what you are acquiring. What matters primarily is what you're becoming to acquire that. When you're no longer worried about what you are acquiring, and you're now focused on what you're becoming, that's when you start to radiate at that higher level. I want you to be the best. I love you. You love us. Ashe.